Here.
Laughlin.
Here.
Weddington, absent.
Yeah, it sounds like Councilman Weddington maybe coming in a little late, so let's hold on. It's nice to see so many people show up for a special meeting like this, but there are some important things we're gonna be discussing. We don't have a specific public forum, but if there's something on the agenda that you would like to comment on when we get to that agenda point, just raise your hand. I'll recognize you. You can go up to the podium, state your name, your interest, and we'll listen to your comment. We can't vote on anything or any comment. This is basically just a discussion forum for the council.
Mr. President, for clarification, there are no action items on the agenda. This is strictly a reporting out from the deep dive into the departments as requested by the council.
Great. So moving on, and report of council members, mine was fairly easy. I acted as a floater among all the council members for their reports, and I did meet with several individually. And with that, I will move on to Councilman Laughlin, his report on community development.
Sure. Do we want to explain, since there's people here, kind of what we're looking at, why we were looking at it? As we approach budget, the things like that.
Yeah, this came about last year during our budget workshops when we were getting down to the wire to getting a budget filed in time before the deadline. And it was decided that we didn't have the time or necessarily all the information available to act on some of these concerns we had. So what we decided to do is a deeper dive with specific council members picking up various departments or areas that they had an interest in. And over, the next, it's been like not close to 9 months now, look at these areas with some recommendations that we could possibly implement in our 26-27 budget. So with that, is there anything else I missed out on that?
Nope.
I'm done. Okay.
Perfect.
If you want to review the categories, they were admin, groundskeeping, public safety, transportation, community development, and personnel.
Yep. All right. To kick it off, I had community development, and my goal was to look through all of the different community development that we have done in the past. All the ones that we continually work with, and then try to put some stuff together on my thoughts. Things have changed with community development over the last even 5 years when we looked at stuff. One of the things that, if you're here from our community development sector, that now we require you to bring in a profit loss statement, balance sheet. We want to, if you're asking for taxpayers' funds, we want to look at what you have as well, making sure funds are being used reasonably so that when we grant taxpayers funding, we do so knowing where your budget, where your line items are. We can ask questions from the council, make sure that the need is there, what we're looking at. Community development, I kind of looked at as a whole. There's a lot of items on here, but a lot of this will change as we go look at stuff. Chamber of Commerce, we have a contract, so no recommendation of change at this time because we have a contract set with them. Same thing with Keith County Area Development, same thing. So KCAD, we do have a contract with them. So we're going to continue to monitor, both of those contracts, continue to make changes as they have changes on there. And I think we're looking at one for the chamber here before too long. But continue just to monitor those. Those make it easy because of the contracts. The rest of them, what I looked at, and I've kind of been a proponent to this over the last couple of years, is getting away from funding overhead. I don't feel that we should be funding overhead out of tax dollars for any organization. Would really like to move towards project-based funding. So that if a taxpayer says, where did my funds go if we lent or we granted out, let's say $5,000 to the Historical Society, that we can point to where those dollars went. That went to new windows, that went to a bench. You know, if it went to Keep Kind of Beautiful, for example, too, we can point to a specific cleanup that it went to, maybe vests, emergency vests, to keep people safe on the side of the road while they pick up, you know, trash and do recycling, or maybe gloves. I would really like to move away from that overhead funding. We've been trying to do that over time. So that is one of the biggest things that I would like to push with all of these groups this year is to, I do have meetings set with quite a few of them after this meeting, after our discussion, to go into what that would look like, how that would be implemented if that's something we're all interested in too. You know, overhead is just so hard to account for. And I think when we're looking at action items for our community, I want to make sure that those tax dollars are attached to a specific need, want of the community. I think in the community itself, we have a lot of mechanisms through fundraising, through volunteer organizations, through the Big Give, things like that, that it's in our best interest to move away from anything that we're funding overhead on. You know, taxpayers do a good job of saying, I want my funds to go here, here, and here, with things like the Big Give, donations, golf tournaments, things like that. And sometimes I think we take the power away from some of the volunteer groups by saying, hey, we'll just fund everything at the city level, instead of letting others step into, you know, those action groups, those different committees that they're working through. So I said quite a few of these, I have meetings after our meeting today, just to go over that. But that's kind of my broad recommendation, is to push towards that direction with anything that we have with community development.
I think that's a great point. Yeah, you know, my thoughts are that a lot of this deeper dive, deeper discussion was or can be attributed to our loss of funding prior years and some reductions we've had. So we've had to cut some areas that we really, you know, we're hesitant to do. We funded for a lot of years, but if we don't have the money to fund it, you know, we can't do it. So it's, you know, even as with KCAD and the chamber, you know, even though we have contracts with them, you know, there are provisions in there that we can, you know, terminate with notice and renegotiate, which we don't want to do.
Yeah.
Unless we absolutely have to, for whatever reason.
And I think part of this is also setting up to have these conversations with the different groups. You know, I can't speak for the entire council when I'm talking with these groups. So part of it is sitting there saying, okay, this year, as we look into this, if we move this direction, we want to give all of the different groups time to make adjustments as they needed. You know, community development is super important, but also if it comes down to, you know, anything wage-based, insurance, specialty equipment, things like that. When it comes to functions for the whole community, those things are, in my mind, have to come first. Because, you know, I'm not going to sit there and say we need to make a wage change, for example, but yet then say, hey, I'm good with giving $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 out in community development, because our employees are very important. So part of this is to have that conversation of, you know, we put everything last year kind of did equal across the board. What I would like to do is, as we continue to discuss this, you know, put in those terms, letting them know, hey, we're gonna fund, you know, project-based things as they come up. And maybe that's getting away from budgeting and community development in general. Maybe we need to go to a Keno fund or just a community development budget item that over the year, as needs happen, we can have people come in like they do with Keno funds and say, hey, can you support this? Instead of giving it out right at the beginning of the year. So kind of re-envisioning community development, in my mind, makes the most sense. Because if we have bigger needs with individual groups and we have the funds available, it makes sense to give those to the areas that have the biggest impact, things that we're working on, instead of just saying, well, everybody gets $5,000. I think it'll make a bigger splash in the different groups if we look at it that way based on projects.
I would just add a little bit to that. I agree. It's tough to say, but we're dealing with it in the budgets and having to look at cuts, and as the rising cost of everything continues and to the community development, it's important and it's vital now that they work on becoming self-sufficient.
And it's becoming harder for everyone with grant funding disappearing in some areas. Just having these open conversations with the different groups and saying, hey, here's what we see for our outlook for this coming year. But here's how we're going to continue to approach it in the future too, so they can start making plans and they have time to make adjustments. Cause I mean, as Mary would know, it takes a long time to get a grant through. Sometimes they're annual, so trying to adjust budgets and make changes even this far in gets to be difficult. So I think I'm glad we're doing this now, because to make adjustments and changes, it takes time. So I mean, especially looking into what this budget cycle is, but helping them plan for the following budget cycle is going to be very important.
Other questions, comments from council? Okay. There's no one who wants to discuss or comment on that. We'll move on to Councilman Dupierre, groundskeeping and personnel.
Thank you. Before I get into this, I just want to highlight and share my heart and my approach on this entire conversation with the council, with those in attendance and those watching live online or who will watch later. I used this example yesterday on one of my posts, and one of my favorite things to do is take my family to a water park. And I think last time we went, it was about a $50 admission per person. And we love it. It's a great time. It's filled with great memories. It's a great experience. The question becomes, what if admission goes to $100 or $500, $1,000, or even $10,000? We always hit a point at what cost? At what cost can we continue doing this? And so that's been my approach through this conversation, as I've done some research into Park Cemetery and the personnel side of things. And I want to make it very clear, do I want to cut parks? Do we want to cut different things? Are we trying to establish, is somebody valuable enough? Do they do enough? Absolutely not. That is not the goal. That's not the vision. That's not my heart. It's hard to have these conversations. We live with you guys. We all know each other. We're a small community. My question is simple. At what cost? At what cost can we continue going this route? I'm going to take a pretty good guess that everybody in here has seen their tax valuations for this year. It's getting tough. And so we have to have a hard conversation. And to me, it's a reality check. At the end of the day, we're a community of 4,700 people. At what cost can we continue the way that we have been? So that's my heart behind it. My heart is for everybody in this room, everybody in this community. It really is. And with that, I'm willing to have the hard conversation. And so I hope that we're all patient with each other and try to understand where we're coming from. As I move into the parks, first thing, I think the Parks Department does a wonderful job. One of the things that stood out to me was seeing their operation and their buildings and just how much equipment they have packed into a small area. And I absolutely give them a round of applause for what they are doing there. Overall, what I've found is, if we look at our audit that happened towards the beginning of the year, is the Parks Department costs us about 100%, double the cost of other communities our size. And one of the big driving factors to that is the amount of acreage that we have to communities of our size. So that's where the potential conversation comes in. of, do we need to look at reducing some green space? And if we were to do that, how would it look? Before I jump into that, one of the other things is water usage and the type of grass that we have. If we were to replace grass, that's going to have some initial cost. Some of the information that I found was Aurora, Colorado replanted 18 acres. Just 18 acres, and that saved them 10 million gallons of water annually. There's about a 70% reduction in cost. They went from watering 3 times a week to watering twice a month. And so I think there's a potential for savings there. It's a conversation I think we should have. My proposal, if we were gonna do something, is have a park supervisor try to establish what areas would be classified as primary and secondary. And of course, we want to try and keep the primary what we currently have, and secondaries maybe have a conversation on what going to a native grass would look like.
So is that what you're talking about when they did the replanting, they went to a native grass?
Yes, they replanted to a native grass. So I think that's something that we should at least consider and have a conversation as to what areas would be primary, what areas would be secondary, what the initial investment would be, and what the cost savings would be. You know, one thought I have had is, because we have so many acres of parks, what would it look like if we were to consolidate or reduce? And I know this is going to hurt some, but when I looked at the parks, one of them I would talk about would be West Park. Over there toward on kind of West Fifth Street, just north of the fairgrounds. You know, that would be a potential of reducing. What I would consider talking about is turning it into a pocket park. So that way there's still some sort of park feature and a little bit of green space on that side of town. But roughly, I think you could take about 3 acres and move it to development that would open up additional tax revenue and allow for some development of housing out there in that area. Is there other areas that we could reduce? Possibly, but limited. You know, when we look at the extra acreage over there by the YMCA, I think we should hold on to that for a little bit longer to kind of see how the relationship with YMCA turns out and what opportunities. What I'm getting at is that land I think could be valuable.
To the west, to the south, or both.
Of the YMCA
Yeah,
to the east.
oh yeah, to the east, that's the schools.
That's the schools.
Yeah.
Okay. So be to the south there where the volleyball pits are, just that entire general area. Hollister Park there north of the pool, that's
Collister's over by the rec center.
yeah,
Zero Park is. by the
Zero
pool.
Park.
Yep.
So also they call it North Park.
Yep.
So that's a nice central location there. And then you've got Williams Park up there north. So there's kind of my question there with West Park. I'm curious what your guys' initial thoughts are on that.
I know Austin, you and I had visit about this too, and I think it's always one of the things you're bringing up is, do a cost analysis of what parks cost us. Are we utilizing each park to its fullest? Are there ways that we could redo a park that would serve multiple purposes versus just single purpose parks? For example, North Park could be retrofitted and changed to have, 2 T-ball fields on, versus just one that sits there that's barely used. Where we could look at what parking looks like at all the different parks and then set a priority, having our parks department work with Kevin on saying, hey, if we looked at a restructure, what would that look like? Where's our cost advantages of it? Where would our priorities be? Where's the cost savings that we could get if we did look at that and then get their expertise to go forward? I think all of those are very valuable because I think sometimes we put green space in place And then over time, it either isn't ever utilized as it was in the past, but then we feel the need just to keep it in the same, space that it's been forever. Instead of looking at, hey, is there a different way to do it that could maximize the effects for the community? And some of that is if we put more money into another park, doing a restructure, then removing one makes sense too, especially of our low use parks. Because I think if you even count up baseball fields and places that people could go on to, we have a lot, especially for our size community. So I think those are all very valid.
Yeah, West
Yeah, there's-
Park has one diamond, and then they have like playground equipment there. They used to have a tennis court, which became cracked, dilapidated, actually dangerous. We removed it years ago. I think, you're absolutely right. We need to look at what does it cost us to operate that park? I mean, that park alone, what would we say, 10,000, 20,000 a year? And then what could we do with it? And, surrounded by residential housing, that would probably be the most logical use for that ground. If we could get it laid out appropriately, get the units in there. But what I would want to make sure we do, is if we do a housing development, that's to me is economic development. And what we would gain in property tax from that, I mean, that's the purpose of economic development. To see the growth in our valuation. So what we need to do is a project where we could possibly just give the land away at no cost. But with that said, we want to make sure that something is developed. And preferably without any type of incentive, because if we TIF a project for 15 years.
Yeah.
There's no benefit to the city for 15 years.
And put a time frame on that development too, where it
Sure.
affects the city, so you don't have piece of property that's just held and then it's harder to do anything later on.
Yeah, it's a good dive. I mean, it's worth discussing.
It's a tough conversation, but I think it's something we need to look at just based off of the audit on how we compare to other communities of our size. And that's, again, the hard question, but it's the reality check. Are we trying to be too big for what we really are? If growth comes, that's great, but growth should not be expected. We have to be good stewards and manage what we currently have. And I think there's some improvements we could make. To give you some hard numbers, the parks budget is about 700,000 a year. There's 42 acres that they manage, so $16,500 per year per acre is what the citizens are paying to manage that.
Mr. President, just a point of clarification it's not necessarily within the audit, it's an addendum to the audit to which Councilman Dupierre refers to. That takes our per capita expenditure and its intent is to demonstrate areas that we need to look at to see if there's an anomaly. It's not necessarily a apples to apples comparison with communities of a similar size, because there are operational differences. Some parks department don't do snow removal. Some parks departments don't do, are not active in some of the trash pickup. Some parks departments don't have a splash pad. So it's a good tool, and it's a good tool that says, hey, let's look at this. But it's not a perfect example of saying, okay, Cozad is $20 per capita and Ogallala is $40 per capita. We're doing something wrong. It's more than likely that there are things that are operationally different between those two communities that reflect that in budget. So the tool is a good tool causing us to look into that and say, okay, what are those anomalies? But it's not an apples to apples comparison.
Sure. Understood. And, some communities, they may have, a 6-month park department. And during the winter, they have no labor. whatever, or hire more kids, we have. Superintendent and then full-time, it's just stupid. Again, it's worth continuing this discussion on that. The other thing that we need to point out is that we have the biggest recreation area in Nebraska at Lake McConaughey. And we also have, the Optimus Park. We have the nature park at the Strip, the wildlife management area. We have Big Mac Sports Club.
Soapbox Derby.
So we have Soapbox Derby. So, we
The
have,
Arterburn Cabin is in the parks budget.
And I think all of those things are important to look at, and Austin's done a good job with it, because I think it gets down to, is it a best use for what we have it now? We get constant comments all the time saying, we would like this, we want a dog park, we want more of this, a splash pad extra all the time. So it's like having the ability to sit down, do a survey, say, is it truly the best use for what we're using it now? And what could it be? Could it be something else community development wise? Could it be housing? Could it be recreational? What does that look like?
I know there's been a demand for additional tennis courts. And we've had people come up to talk to us about pickleball.
Yep.
Mary, you have a comment?
I do. Sorry.
Mary Bolton with Keith County Area Development. Just a comment, Steve, on your TIF comment about there's no benefit received by the city.
For 15
Property,
years.
property tax wise, there's no benefit received directly by the city. However, the increment that's able to be captured, a portion of that does go back to the Community Redevelopment Authority that is under the city's umbrella, which then can also use those funds to reinvest in infrastructure projects throughout the city, which we have seen benefit of. But there's also sales tax revenue increase if we build new homes or you see new developments happen. And also you have increased population from that. So no property tax benefit, but there are other benefits, indirect benefits.
Let me clarify that then. The city receives no benefit for current expense from that
Right.
property tax. It's going to, the projects you just mentioned. And offset for 15 years.
A percentage of it, yeah,
Right.
but not 100% is allocated back to the project. There's a portion, and Jane can explain those percentages, but it goes to
The
the
tax-
CRA.
The current tax that it's receiving, the city receives, continues to receive that.
Correct. The increment is that the increment
That's exactly right.
gets split between the CRA, split at a different ratio. Part to the project, part to the CRA.
Right.
Right, the property tax benefit.
So if
This
we,
But the part, can I say, the part that goes to the project has to be used on public infrastructure, which that's a loose term.
Right,
yeah,
I
for
just
that, but yeah.
didn't want
right.
there to be, there's no benefit to the city because there is, just not directly from the increase in property taxes.
there's an added layer here with public property, if we dedicate, because public property currently has no tax. So the entire increment would go to the project.
No, there'd be,
No.
there'd be the current valuation before the project. So like, let's say we
Property.
sell it.
Yeah, but we.
It has a
we don't pay
value.
Value, but it's based on property tax.
It has a value that's not being taxed, but there's still a value. So like if it gets subdivided out, each parcel will have a value. And that is the base value. And then the TIF contract is the increment, what's built on top of the property. If it's done properly, yes, there would be,
Okay. So we
there would
have,
be additional property tax.
so
The additional that's paid, either part of it goes to the project and the rest goes to the.
But like, let's say we
Community
sold it to
redevelopment.
one developer, they subdivided it, they'd make all the lots, it would be taxable at that point. Then we enter into TIF contracts to build on those properties. The increment that's built is the amount that is captured for 15 years.
so where do we find that value?
That'd be an assessor question.
Which value specifically
Are you talking about
Park.
West Park?
Yeah, West Park.
Like if they did West Park,
Oh, so right now you're not receiving any property
Right.
tax
Right, that's-
anyway.
that's what I.
So really, there is no
Well, see, that,
But-
that's,
negative,
but it
no,
would
but there's
be
no
partial
negative
down.
impact than if you would TIF that project because you're not receiving property tax right
Right.
now anyway.
Yeah.
I think what Mary's saying too is it sounds like, even though there's no tax value, once we restructure it. Let's say we're gonna put houses there, then that value goes up, And we're actually getting more off of it based on that new project. Because of the new valuation.
Right.
After, yes,
After, yeah,
but you
Because right
still
now
have
we
the
don't really have
tool
much
of the
of a-
CRA that's
Yes.
able to capture that additional increment.
yes.
So part of that increment goes to the project, but the additional part goes to the CRA. And so there's a lot of new streets that have happened out south because of that increment. The CRA is
Yeah.
able to pay tax for this infrastructure,
Getting all sub-
which
I know.
the
Yeah.
city
Yeah.
obviously
Okay.
doesn't know about.
All right,
Well,
all
We're not even talking.
That's
Yeah.
it. I just wanted to make sure that that was very, very clear.
right.
Thank you, Mary.
So, moving on in the parks, one thing, I don't have a whole lot of answers here, but I thought I'd throw it out there. One of the things that the Parks Department mentioned to me was. I'm just gonna say how it is. The difficult and challenges and frustrations that come from the sand volleyball courts and the water feature out there by the YMCA, the splash pad. And this one hurts me personally. I've got little kids and we love that splash pad. But the reality of it is it's very expensive. It's very expensive to maintain and fix and comes with quite a few headaches. On the sand volleyball courts, just their frustration was the amount of time they spend raking the sand after every practice, every tournament, every time the wind blows. They're out there having to rake and maintain it. Again, I don't have answers, but wanted to.
I did think that was something you and I talked about a little bit too, but from my recollection from the meeting when we approved that, is that's Optimus's job. We should not be doing any maintenance, we should not be doing any replacement, no equipment, that's all Optimus. They wanted the option to maintain and take care of it. We were having nothing to do beyond that point. It was supposed to be volunteer driven, not city dollars driven. So we shouldn't have anybody out there, doing raking, leaves, sand maintenance, that should all be on Optimus in that group. Cause that's what it was when it came through here.
Can I speak?
Yes.
Doug Davis, and I represent the Optimus Club. We said that we would assist any kind of like the additional sand. And we never said that we would take over maintenance of the volleyball court.
See, we should have had no maintenance, cause that was one of the questions brought up in that meeting. That if we have to pay for maintenance and we have to take care of wear and tear and care on it, then it was a no go.
Well, yeah, but it was never said that we were gonna maintain the property. We would assist them in doing that. If I remember right, if you need additional sand, things like that, we would assist them in that.
Yeah, but we shouldn't be having our guys out there maintaining the property. That was that's why you guys put it in, you paid for it to be put in, you put in for the maintenance off the front end, but we shouldn't be doing that all the time.
So we should be doing the maintenance like we were doing at Humphreys Pond. Or
Correct. Cause like
Which is
Humphreys
City
Pond
Park.
was something that the Optimus wanted to take over. And now the city's having to mow. And
Yeah.
it's costing the city and taxpayers funds, so we have to decide are those things still worth the city and taxpayers funds? When we look at it, so.
And
we
it's
get into
it's
that
a
with, like,
finite
the
thing
water
with volunteers. That's it.
Correct.
We just don't have the pool that we've had for years. Well, small towns rely heavily on volunteers.
Correct.
But just from my recollection, so I think I was president at that time for Optimus, and that was understanding. We weren't gonna be out there raking the yard. But I see it, I'm just trying to, for
Yeah.
clarification.
And it's just more of, we got into that with the splash pad that Austin's talking about too, it was great, there was funds raised for it.
Yeah.
But now the maintenance, wear, tear, and the water usage.
Yes,
is
water usage has been-
astronomically
Right.
for that. And if we would have known, cause I wasn't here on that one, but if we had probably known what we know now, that would have probably been no go, in my opinion.
I think
Yeah, there's all that leap of faith, you have to do it. It's just on the parks department ground. I don't know what time you do it, and it's. Where does responsibility fall, And that, you find that out when there's issues.
I think, thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying those, and
Go ahead.
I think the overall lesson on this is just the unintended consequences of free things. They're beautiful, we love them, it's a great activity, I'm not knocking that at all. It's those unintended consequences we may not have seen in years past, and just as we go forward, really trying to narrow those down as to what those unintended consequences could be and how it affects the city and the overall budget. So. Something else in the Parks Department, again, this is gonna be a little bit of a hot topic. Is lease agreements ran through the parks, and so there's primarily three of them. One of them is the Artburn Youth Cabin, Soapbox Derby, and the Big Mac Shooting Sports Club. As it currently sits and as it has always been, these organizations pay a lease. The lease is $1 per year. The city covers all of the insurance, and to a point, every one of them's a little bit different, but to a point, maintenance. Utilities, we cover utilities. Jane, is that correct?
I'm not positive.
Okay,
I know they have to provide insurance.
there's a
They have to have a liability coverage, but we insure the building.
we insure the buildings, correct? And so, again, I want to make it very clear. This is not about trying to establish a value or a worth to these organizations. I think they are all fantastic. It's just having the conversation as we plan and as we go forward this budget season into next budget season. What can we do? You know, I'm not gonna say who or which organization it was, but I had a loose conversation with one of the members and said, you know, hey, what's your thoughts on this? You guys pay $1 and we cover all these expenses. At what point do we sit down and talk about this? And he kind of chuckled and he said, you know, we've been talking and wondering how long we're gonna get away with this. And again, the goal is not for the city to make money, but rather how can we balance or even out some of the expenses that we have? You know, I'll throw one idea out there, the shooting range. Does the city really want that liability? Or would it be better to give them the land, sell them the land, and it's theirs?
Our police officers use it a lot too for shooting.
I bet they'd let them use it. I've been advocating that for years. Just give it to them. And they do a great job because they come to us not very often. They can't budget for that.
When I first got here, the facility was in disrepair. I think we've put about $30,000 into it since I've been here. But yes, over the course of the years, they've built their membership back up. They've got a lot of activities out there. They've got the school has their trap club out there. So it is something that they have reestablished a higher use for the shooting range.
So that would be my question to, you know, these areas and to you guys, you know, do we look at options? Do we look at a different lease amount that kind of helps cover some expenses? Do we look at selling or giving the property to these organizations? The Soapbox Derby would be another one. I think I don't know all the legalities up there on the hill with the water tank and how all of that plays in. The Artburn Youth Cabin would be another one. That one, I don't think we could sell or get rid of because it's tied in there with the Legion Field and all of that. You know, can we increase the lease on it? I kind of glanced at that building. That building could be used as a daycare facility. We know that we have a shortage of daycare, or we have a high need for daycare facilities. That's an open floor plan with bathrooms and a kitchen. Just a lot of ideas there and questions.
So Austin, to answer your question, the city does pay the water for the youth cabin and Soapbox Derby.
Thank you. I know just the insurance portion, the one I looked at was for the Soapbox Derby, and that was about $8,000 a year just for the insurance on the buildings. So I would say you could probably estimate between $8,000 and $10,000 per location is what it would be costing the city. Any questions on that?
I wonder what our acreage would be if we pull out Big Mac Sports Club and Soapbox Derby, how we would fall into
Good question.
Big Mac. I know Big Mac Sports Club, that's a pretty sizable chunk of property. So,
That's a great question.
Can we comment real quick?
Absolutely.
Once again. Are you a Big Mac Sports Club member? For years?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, just for clarification, when I was the president of the trap club, I think for 7 or 8 years. So I'd pay $1,500 and some a year for liability policy. At that time, I paid it all for Big Mac Sports Club because the trap club was the one that really had a means for generating income. We paid that $1 a year lease. And so when you first came here, the damage that was done, there was a hail claim, if I recall. That's why we got a roof on the shed and roof on the building. But I think the Big Mac Sports Club, out of their own coffers, put in new windows and drywall out there for them. So,
We did $20,000 first year I was here,
yeah.
$10,000 the second year. We did some work on we helped pay for a
Bathroom.
rock shed. We redid a bathroom.
Yeah,
I mean, it's all stuff that the club
yeah,
participated in.
right, getting it done. But yeah.
I think we purchased the supplies.
And just for clarification, just being recorded and stuff, the public schools do not have a trap team there, so that's a youth.
Oh, okay.
I just want to clarify that, this rules. Just trying to be a school guy here.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
yeah, looking back at what their budgets have been for the Big Mac Sports Club. Very little from the city.
Yeah.
I mean, and they do a great job. I'm a member, have been
They do a great job.
been
Volunteers.
for years, and now they're starting a pistol league
Yes.
this month, and they're having bowling pin shoots.
They're active.
They are.
That's where I do like the idea of, allowing them to fully privatize it, take the city out of it. Then they can adjust to their needs as they need to. They can make changes if they need to. Especially if we make it. Based on the land, a sell or a give, if we donate the land or whatever we do with that. We'd probably work a deal for the police officers. So, right, if we do a trade in kind for a police officer to be able to utilize it for, training and stuff like that, then land jurors, it's privatized, they can change their membership, their structure, however they need to, as they develop over time. And we're not keeping our thumb, or we're not making the decisions.
Agree. We give it to them. We could lease it back for them for the police department.
Yeah, I mean, you could have like a city membership of some sort, so.
Good point.
Yeah.
Carol, did you have a question earlier?
Well, I was just gonna make a comment on soapbox building, right? I mean, we are unique in the size of that facility for a town our size. In the actuality, town probably 200 times our size. From what I've heard, I haven't done any research on this myself, but that the volunteers that work up there and maintain that facility have done an awesome job, and they are probably a huge draw for Ogallala as a revenue generator, just from people coming in and participating in the events there. So to me, if we're gonna look at, I don't know, changing anything there, we probably need to look at if we can figure that out, what the costs ROI benefit from that revenue that we're getting versus the $8,000 we're spending for the insurance and the.
I agree. Sometimes it's hard to be able to identify just what the return on investment is in certain areas. By all means, they do have a draw of people that come in. Couple weekends in the summer, generates sales tax, hotel stays, restaurants, all of those things. Again, my message is not about making it to the point where they cannot thrive by any means.
I hear you, because it's like you're trying to make it a win-win for not only
yeah.
you make it private for them, but also, take the liability of the city. And I do think the cabin would be worth taking on that contract what it was when that land was moved over. Because I don't think it's a bad idea to look at what it would look like to do. You know, a lease if somebody wanted to do something with that versus what it's used for now. I know we have some things that go on in there here and there, but we do have quite a few other places in town that could hold and do the same kind of activities. That are actually even better. Than that. So.
I agree.
Our budget only goes back 10 years historically, but we haven't funded so much Derby for 10 years. They've been carrying it on to it.
The only way we fund them is just covering insurance, utilities.
Yep.
Again, roughly between that $8,000 and $10,000 a year. I'll move on into the cemetery conversation. My findings were the same. John does an amazing job out there. Beautiful. Everybody knows that. We had John actually prepared and gave me kind of some rough numbers on what it would cost to reseed out there and look at going to a native grass. Again, that's a touchy subject. I'm not jumping to it. It just becomes, again, a conversation of the amount of water and maintenance it takes on this bluegrass compared to a native grass and what the potential savings would be. I believe to plant that from seed was $75,000 would be the initial investment on that up front. Some of the things I identified out there at the cemetery was the cost to buy a lot and perpetual care. Perpetual care is $400 and a lot costs $450. So overall $850, you get a lot with perpetual care. Comparing that, I mean, it's tough. I want to make this clear. When you compare other communities, you can find them all over the place. But between talking to people, looking at comparable cemeteries, it's looking more like the average cost is between $4,000 and $5,000 in total for perpetual care and lot costs. So I think we should consider and at least look at our pricing out there. In addition, I know there's been conversations in the past about doing an expansion project. Right now there's 731 lots available to be sold. We're averaging 1 to 2 lots sold per month. In short, I don't think we need to look at an expansion plan out there anytime soon. Not to mention cremation rates are expected to exceed 80% over the next 20 years. So we're going to see full burials continue to decline. So with that many lots in inventory, I would caution on the need for an expansion project.
That 75,000 for native grass, is that like the labor to take out the grass to kill the existing grass or anything, or is that just the seed?
That's just to oversee. That's just to oversee, isn't it, John?
Just seeding,
Yeah.
but the seed itself.
So yeah, no labor.
Okay.
That's something that could be done over time as well in different sections as we change maybe watering, as we look at maybe a water survey for not only parks, but cemetery. What that looks like, you could do it in phases. It wouldn't have to be at one time either, so.
Yeah. And John, you might help me on this, but as I recall, when we trim the cemetery, if one guy is doing it, by the time he gets to the end, he just starts all over and starts trimming around headstones again.
We made it a lot easier, but if you were to do it, with one person, yeah, it would be pretty much,
Yeah.
you'd have to start all over.
So, and what the policy is now is that, yeah, from a recommendation by Guy Bechtel is we pour concrete around the headstone so we don't have to trim. We can mow without trimming around that headstone.
Should I?
Yeah, please do.
John Fenwick, temporary cemetery manager. Yeah, what was proposed is for the any new stone that is set. They will put the foundation for the full size of the lot. Before, they would just put the pad and there would be a gap between foundation. So all the old ones, we would have to come back through and pour all those 1 foot sections of grass. But as we're going forward, they're putting the foundations the same size as the lot so that they'll butt up for the next ones.
But, you know, that, I mean, pouring it around existing stones, I mean, that's something that we could do over years. I mean, that could be a long range plan
That would have to be,
to go in and pour around those. That would, I think that would save us a lot of time, a lot of labor on that too.
yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, John. That was most of the findings there at the cemetery. The last thing, I've been thinking about and considering is it in the best interest of the taxpayers in Ogallala for us to have all of these individual departments, specifically parks, cemetery, airport, and roads? Or do we need to look into the future at maybe a public works department where we start to pull these things in? I would make an argument that when you look at parks and cemetery, the job description is very similar. And I struggle to see why we need to have those separated and why they would not be just pulled in under one roof. And I'm not necessarily saying that parks and airport, all of those need to be bundled together. But a lot of times there's similarities between them. And would that cause us to be more efficient instead of, you know, my job is only to work in this department, or I work in the public works and the job could be mowing ditches, mowing the cemetery, mowing parks, prepping a baseball field. Open roads guys open up a road. You know, there's a lot of similarities there. And so I would ask that question going forward. What does that look like? Why do we have them currently separated apart? You know, I would consider taking parks and cemetery and bringing them together, possibly even this fiscal year. You know, John's situation is resigned. Sad to see you go. Truly, you've done a phenomenal job out there. Hate to see you go. With that, is this a good time to make that kind of a pivot?
I think it is. I think that is something that we could move on. Not necessarily implement current fiscal year, but the ensuing year, 26, 27, and have it ready to trigger that. Public Works Director, we used to have a Public Works Director, and it made the city manager more efficient in dealing with grants, funding, economic development, the funding of the community, chasing that down. When we eliminated the Public Works Director, city manager was just acting as Public Works Director.
In fairness to the department heads, they do overlap and they do assist each other in one of the, they mow the airport, they mow ditches, they scoop snow. They communicate, the department heads communicate fairly regularly to make sure stuff gets done.
So I guess that kind of advocates more of Austin's point. But even beyond that, I mean, I guess me looking at the data, I guess one of the challenges I have is the data I was looking at, it was difficult to do anything with. So especially for streets. I mean, the annual report or the monthly reports I get, I guess I don't wanna take away from what they do, because obviously they're working with them. But I guess what I'd like to go to is, if we go to this director, is that we maybe think about buying some software to help him or her be more efficient, that track hours, that generate work orders by job. That type of thing, because that's one of the recommendations I was gonna make for streets. Just to help us as well see what they're working on and the challenges they have. And figure out what it's actually costing us to pave our streets and do overlay projects and repair houses. Because that's one of the things I couldn't figure out with the app today.
I think your software idea is great. I know they make it for the private sector. I know general contractors who have it now. They've showed me that, yeah, I know this guy is here right now, and he's here, and this is when he got to that job. And, they can track it. It would be helpful.
It's something that's been out there for probably 25, 30 years. But I agree. We probably need to spend
And I
a
think
few
this,
dollars here and there.
oh yeah. And I think too, it's, what we do is we create policy, is what we do, like what we're doing is making recommendations to. Kevin, hey, look into this, have discussions with the departments. Have those kind of discussions about what something like that could look like, what that would mean. Bring that feedback back, at the end of the day, Kevin's in charge of those kind of things, but just making sure that we, open lines of communication with employees, get their feedback, have those discussions, talk about worries, talk about what structures could look like. None of it has to be set in stone, but to start those conversations, I think is a great idea. I think it would help everybody have more visibility within all the departments onto every other department. Because if they all work together now in some form or fashion. But if you had somebody that was over all of them, that could sit there and say, hey, we have this big project, I'm gonna poll people, this is what we need to do today, and help do more efficiently, kind of tackle things, may help out all the departments. Because we've had it at times where, parks will say, oh, we're down a couple people, somebody was sick, somebody was hurt. That we fill in, this would just be a better way of where it could work top down to fill in, help work through the different projects or things that come up.
I think it would make sense as well from the standpoint, if you look at the cemetery and the parks department, I'm not picking on those guys, they always have something to do. I wanna make that very clear. But primarily it's seasonal. They have a very busy season and then it tapers off into the winter. And so one of the things I look there is, I'm not saying we have too many, but that would be more of a Wilkins question. Should we reduce the amount of full-time guys we have in there? If you reduce full-time guys, that opens up a lot more finances to hire guys seasonally. So you're not carrying that cost burden year round, but just through the busy season. Is something I think we really need to look at. And one of the ways you can do that is if everybody's under one umbrella, you have enough manpower to go where the tasks are and the jobs are. Steve, to your point, I do have to ask, you said not in this budget cycle. I have to ask why we wouldn't, with John resigning and stepping down. Why would we replace that position? And why wouldn't we just, take the park supervisor, merge these two together and let them.
We could, my thoughts are we could do it on an interim basis, work with the budgets for both departments. Which, I guess we could, it'd be, a real clean start, I'm saying come October 1, I think, so they would operate like that. I'm not saying bring in another cemetery superintendent or director. Just assign it to the parks.
So hang tight on it.
Yeah. And then be ready, have them do what they need to do, what probably Jared would need to do, or however we do it. Get ready for this to start October 1. if he would need, more part-time help. Get his handle on what John's doing, so he understands.
My apologies,
No,
I meant not this budget cycle, this coming October.
Yeah, he would be Parks Director, which would include cemetery.
Okay.
It would be difficult if this is a restructuring of a department, which would require new job descriptions. New job titles, it sounds simpler than what it is in practicality. And to do that at the peak season of operations would be incumbent.
And we're not that far away from October one.
Okay. No,
Yep.
I just misunderstood.
I have a question. Are you wanting to combine the financials for the two departments as well? Or I see us combining them and then a future council saying, but we want to know how much it's actually costing to run the cemetery. We want to keep them separated.
I would keep them separate. Personal costs.
That would be allocated based on where they're working.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And that goes back to Councilman Weddington's point on software, and we have looked into our. You go to an Excel spreadsheet, manually put in your hours, and there are better ways to track.
You can do it on your phone. And everyone's carrying a phone.
Well, people service, they know where you're at, what you're doing, and
Absolutely.
it's all in.
I don't, in globally for the.
But those are costs.
Yeah, globally for the city budget, I don't see us eliminating any budget lines.
No.
The parks stay the park, cemetery stay the cemetery, airports the airport, roads the roads. But their personnel costs may get adjusted based on combining or engaging a public works director.
Well, I think we definitely want the extra time, just because that gives time to talk to departments, get feedback. Have those conversations, because there may be something we're not thinking about that they can bring back, because those are the conversations Kevin's gonna have. Which will help everybody as well, because there may be some things that we don't see or we're not thinking of either. And then going back to those departments and having those conversations with them, I think will be important.
I agree.
And giving them, time to plan, if we decide to make a change of some sort, even just combining departments alone. Having time to plan, looking at that, saying, here's what a structure would look like, how does that affect stuff? And, Kevin's gonna do that way better than me.
And you are in a manager shift, so it would be fair to involve that as part of the transition.
Right. But then you don't have a new manager coming in, trying to wade through all the changes that are in the process too.
All right, sorry, I'll move on here. One other area I wanted to talk about, before I get into this, I want to make it very clear that I do kind of have a conflict of interest with the type of business that I own. But with that comes some knowledge, and I just want to pass this information to the council and to administration as to what to specifically look for, and that comes down to equipment utilization. Historically and currently, the city uses governmental lease programs with the different companies like Bobcat, Caterpillar. These programs have traditionally been fantastic. Very, very good programs, unbeatable in fact. What we're seeing in the industry as a whole is they are realizing it does not make money. And so they're doing two things simultaneously. They're taking the largest increase to the programs, and they're also reducing the overall size of the program. So every salesman, if a salesman's got 30 governmental lease units out there, they're being told to cut it down to 25 this year, while taking the largest increase. So I'll cut this short. Ultimately, what you want to do is take your lease cost divided by the amount of hours that you're returning that piece of equipment at the end of the year. Traditionally speaking, most of these leases allow you to put 250 hours on a machine. And if the cost is, $9,000 a year, that makes sense. It works. The issue becomes when you return that piece of equipment with, say, only 125 hours on it, all of a sudden your operating cost per hour on that machine begins to not make sense. And so I just encourage everybody to keep an eye on that number. I will absolutely say for this coming budget season, I would not change anything. I would continue with the lease programs. I just want you to be aware of what's happening. I'll give you some numbers. If you have a lease program at $9,000, you return a machine with 125 hours of use, you're paying $73.60 per hour. If you were to compare that to renting, you would be closer in the $40 to $60 range. So you need to keep that in mind, or possibly buying used equipment. In fact, I think this might be the better way to go. You know, you could find a used skid steer or excavator with that 12 to 1500 hours on it. If you're doing 125 hours a year, you're going to get 8 to 10 years of usage out of that machine at a cost of only $3,000 a year, significantly cheaper than what you're currently paying in lease programs. That number does not include maintenance, so you've got to take that with a grain of salt. I know that's a lot of information. All I'm trying to say is, I think what's going to happen long-term is they're going to continue to reduce the program and increase the cost of it. And at some point, it may not make sense to continue with the lease programs. You might want to consider buying used. Would be my 2 cents. Okay. I think that moves us up into personnel stuff. I don't have much to add towards wages. Beyond what we've already talked about with the possibility of like a public works, or looking at parks and cemetery, and looking at, I don't want to say reducing jobs, but the less full-time employees you have, the more money you have to hire part-time guys. We know if we've got a full-time employee at $60,000, just the medical benefit is nearly $40,000. So that $60,000 employee is actually a $100,000 employee. So for every full-time position we don't have, we could pay higher wages for part-time guys. I know finding people is difficult as a whole. I do not have all the answers to everything. But my question is at what cost can we continue going the way that we are before we have to make some drastic decisions? And it's my goal not to make drastic decisions. I hate to keep talking about this, but with like John's resignation, that's an opportunity to not fulfill a position and to look at other avenues. So that would be kind of my tidbit on wages. Insurance, you know, we just covered this a few weeks ago in depth. I really don't have much else to offer to that. That's a hot topic button. We're currently, as of this June, we'll be paying 88% of the medical benefit for full-time eligible employees. State of Nebraska is at 79% for full-time employees and 75% for families. To put it simply, I think we have to be careful about it, but I think we need to continue working our way towards the 80% mark. I think it's very important to educate the employees on exactly what they're getting. As it currently sits, if you are an employee with a family, it's a $17 an hour benefit. And I guess
Insurance is a big issue.
It's huge.
Health
Sure,
insurance.
across the US right now.
You know, this is bad math. This is what we'd call manager math.
Close to my ears.
If you went to every employee in the city of Ogallala and said, we want to pay you an extra $15,000, but you don't have medical insurance. The employee would make an extra $15,000 and the city of Ogallala would save nearly $400,000. To put that into comparison. I'm not saying that's what we should do. I'm just trying to show how large this issue really is. What I'm seeing in the younger generations coming up, they care less and less about benefits and all they want is to make more money. I think that's a delicate balance. Again, I don't know how we handle the situation. But as time goes on and a potential culture shift here, do we consider that when we're hiring? You know, the pay is this, how you get paid is two different ways, whether you want higher better medical, or you just want more cash.
Couple of clarifications to that is when we switched insurance, we had a hard time finding coverage. The deductible went up substantially. The deductible for city employees is substantially higher than state employees. If we drop below 80%, 75%, if we drop below a certain amount of available coverage, then we get dropped by Blue Cross Blue Shield of our group policy. So, the point taken, but just to know it's like everything is a lot more complicated than the math.
I agree completely.
I think we could look at, options for insurance, with a higher deductible, you have your AAA plan, you can. You move down, maybe you have a higher deductible with a health savings account, or like you were mentioning, a cash offset, or incent them, maybe their spouse's employer provides insurance. Help offset that. And
If we made major adjustments, we'd have to find new coverage.
Right. I think it was if we lost 4 full-time employees on our coverage was what it worked out to.
That sounds about right.
Then we wouldn't be eligible for the law plan anymore.
this thing is, insurance is something that we have to work on continually.
I think we had a choice of two different plans.
I talked to one local private entity here in Ogallala, and they just at the top of the year, what they did was they pay a stipend to all the employees, and some of them went out to the private sector for health insurance. And what's being told to me is obviously that private entity does not have that expense anymore. And the employee is spending less overall, so that they're getting more money in their pocket. Again, I'm not an expert on this.
I wonder,
This is a huge expense.
Yeah, it is crazy. I wonder if do we know if any other community in Nebraska offers that? Just a cash in lieu of insurance?
I don't know.
Not that I'm aware of.
I personally believe this conversation, and should the council move in any direction, I believe Ogallala would be at the forefront of this kind of decision making. I believe you're going to see more local governments move in this direction, because this is a monumental problem. And I don't see how it's sustainable long term. Question?
Ryan, you come up there, can I just?
Yes.
Here?
You need to come up, tell us who you are and who you represent.
We don't know who you are.
Cause you're on YouTube, Mr. Schmidt.
Am I really?
Yes.
Okay, well. Ron Schmidt, I'll sign this in here. Concerned citizen, I don't know what else you need to know, gonna
resident of Ogallala here now for 46 years, I believe. When my father and I came to town in August of 1980 and opened our business, healthcare was a problem. And it continued to get worse and worse and worse as time went by, and it was one of our largest challenges in business. And we finally got to the point to where we did exactly what you guys are talking about. We paid a stipend, and our employees were able to go out and get better health insurance for less money. Now, we had a couple of employees that had open heart surgeries that were affecting our small group. And so our younger, healthier employees were being penalized because we had some health issues. And I don't know if you guys are in a small group and it's rated that way. I think, Blue Cross Blue Shield. But anyway, we went to just paying that. And they got better health insurance at a lower cost. And then we paid that additional amount of money. So I don't think it matters that no other community in Nebraska is doing it. I think that the task at hand would be to go out and see what's available. Just take a cross section of your city employees right now and how much is individual healthcare costs if they were to go out and get their own. That might be the information that you need to make the decision, because you don't want to take your employees backwards. You don't want to hurt them, but you've got a health insurance cost issue here that needs to be dealt with. And so to find out what's available to them as individuals right now, and then come up with a transition. Now, maybe your older employees won't like that, because it's going to be more expensive for them, but hopefully they're in a position in their life where they can afford to pay a little bit more than your younger ones. Anyway, that was my point. Was I think you need to look and see what's available to them as individuals now, compare that to what you're paying right now, and see what that looks like.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay.
I'll clarify, that was not the person I talked to, but it's the same story that I've heard.
Well, we used to be self-insured too, till we couldn't afford that name.
They can't.
Yeah.
Well, and even the group policies, you said you were like with two companies. That's not a choice.
We had
No, we had two plans with Blue Cross.
Two
Because
plans.
we went with an interlocal agreement through LARM, so we're combining with other communities in Nebraska for health insurance.
And that's a good thing, but there aren't a lot of companies out there that are even bidding this type of a situation. So you have to, in the Rescue Contractors Association, where we had to all come together.
they were not begging us to jump.
Yeah, relatively speaking, we're a small group,
Sure.
very small group, with older employees.
And you're not worth the risk. So they're like, yeah, we'll pass. So.
Thank you, Ron.
And we're done. Executive Director, West Central Nebraska Development District. I echo Ron's comments, and I'm gonna burst your bubble. Grant led the way on medical in lieu of. Sorry, it's been done.
So when you say medical in lieu of, cash in lieu of.
Cash in lieu of.
Okay.
So if they chose to go with their spouse's insurance, or they went on the private market, they got an in lieu of the medical benefit being offered to them. And at the time, this has been a few years now. I've been away from the city for a little while. Don't quote me on this number, but when I presented the plan and it was ultimately approved, it was $300 a month. So, and that roughly worked out to the premium or the deductible, sorry, at the time that we were paying.
Thank you.
My 2 cents. I didn't want to,
Yeah.
sorry to burst your bubble.
That's
Austin.
okay.
So,
There's worse things.
I know the private sector and companies that I know of.
we only have, we're much smaller.
Yeah.
We were much smaller than you guys even are. We had our insurance through Light, so similar to
Yep.
League of Nebraska Municipalities, the Light insurance. But in that pool, even, we're in the same position. Older employees, higher risk, just like Ron was talking about. We only had one employee leave and take that option, because ultimately the benefit being offered outweighed the cash in lieu of. But we couldn't justify going above the deductible for the year, so.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
And there was not too long ago, they were having discussions on insurance and medical coverage. And even though it's a an issue everywhere. We're in a unique situation now more than ever. To where it used to be beneficial for companies to jump on and get these big group policies because it was always cheaper. The amount of boomers in the workforce is still pretty high. And that's skewing a lot of the stuff. The risk continues to push up nationally in a lot of ways, and that's causing everything to skew higher on costs too across the board. So that's why a lot are looking at, you know, different types of plans, or even breaking apart. You used to see people with Blue Cross Blue Shield and dental, all everything wrapped together, and now they're bit and piecing everything together just to try to save.
Just real quick, Doug Davis again. Back to your cemetery plots. I remember back in the day, and we was back when Steve was city manager, but I remember Bassett was talking about, you guys made a different price rate for residents and non-residents. I would say back in the day, it was like $200, something like that. And you guys raised it up for a little bit non-resident. So I totally get that. It's still a hell of a good time, pardon my French. A good deal for the $400, you know, maintenance and the plot. Where if you're a non-resident, then it should be tenfold, in my opinion. I mean, maybe Kevin was back up now. You remember you guys discussed that? I mean, you guys had a different rate for a non-resident. Because you guys, it's such a deal, people were buying like crazy.
Well, people from out of town were buying them and they were reselling them.
Oh, reselling,
And then we stopped that.
okay.
And so what they had to do is they either had to sell it back to the city
Oh,
at their cost,
okay,
or they had to sell it to someone at their cost.
at their cost.
I don't
Yeah.
think they can sell to you, but they have to sell
They
it
have
back.
to go back to the city now.
Cause you know, I go out there quite a bit, and back in the day, there's just so much more space, but you guys have utilized well over half, maybe now.
Yeah, there was.
John would know that, maybe 2/3, you know, it's probably.
It was when I first started here, there was someone from California doing, I don't know, a couple dozen lots.
Yes, I want to say back in the day, like $200 or something.
Yeah, but it was dirt cheap.
Dirt cheap. But I just want to make that comment, plus, you know, your comment about the lease and duplication of equipment, I think that's really needs to be looked at too. I think you guys have got rid of some backhoes that sat around quite a bit. And that stuff just kills you.
These are good discussions that we're having here, and I mean, these are
No, I
tough, these are tough
They're
items.
tough, yeah.
And but
You guys are doing a great job. I mean, you guys got doged hard, so I mean.
we're at Jane confirmed, we're at our levy right now, it's 38 cents, plus we have a nickel for interlocal agreements. So from 38, we can go to 45, so we have 7 cents left.
Yeah,
Uh,
and all this.
and, you know, the last couple of years, they were surprised us on loss of funds and how we had to react to that.
Yeah.
So,
You know, school's the same way, when we haven't filled a couple positions, when a certain teacher leaves, you know, that way you're not having just 4 or 5 kids in the classroom, you combine those salaries, and it just it adds up.
You know-
years. So,
you know exactly where we're at.
yeah. But I just want to mention that about like that, there's some duplication.
Thanks.
You know, about the-
Thanks, Doug.
And to reiterate, you know, these are discussions, you know, we're not making policy today on anything. It's gonna be continual conversations. This is gonna end now, or probably be over months and months. Department conversations, community conversations. One thing too is, you know, Austin, you tackled the hardest one. I think out of everybody, and it wasn't easy. I mean, cause you'd all be sitting here having to do the same work, and you did a great job with it.
Thank you.
All right, last thing on the cemetery.
Yeah, just clarification on some of the things that we did with the resident, not resident. Yeah, we tried that. It was a nightmare because someone that's just right on the other side of the border. I've been here 40 years. I'm sorry, you have to pay the non-resident. Someone that lived in town, for one instance, she was here 50 years. She had to go to North Platte for, you
A
know,
nursing home.
nursing home. And
Good point.
had to pay the non-resident. And somebody that just moved in 5 years got to pay the resident.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing about the lots, sales stuff, I do have a list from the size of Scotts Bluff down to, I can't remember the name of the town, about 1,500 people. And I have it listed out, you know, what it costs per lot, opening, closing, things like that. And we are definitely within
Very.
that area. And now, since we separated the perpetual care and the lot, if they try to sell back the lot, they do not get the perpetual care fee. So they're actually getting less back if they try to sell it back.
Thank you.
It shows that you need to give the cemetery to the county. County way.
You get on the commission, you get on the county commission and I'll come see you.
Well,
Any other could be things to make a bigger benefit out of cremations, you know, putting, you know, put our new cremator, what's it called?
Columbarium.
Columbarium in. It's like, maybe we look at what the future of that is and make those more reasonable, because you don't have perpetual care a lot of times on that outside of, you know, certain things. I mean, I know there's still some maintenance that happens, but you're not knowing it. You know, maybe we look at that maybe as the future of a lot of it. And, you know, try to fill that up more by making it more attractive.
Yeah, one last hot topic for you. By far, when we look at personnel, insurance is the biggest piece here. I've got my closing statement for wages in this one. Hurts, I don't want it to, but one of the reoccurring justifications I hear for higher paying jobs is longevities and years served. And that one's tricky, and I don't want to say or nitpick any particular one person. But for me, it asks the question, should every position within the city be a permanent job, just long-term? You can get that out of high school, stay here for 20, 30 years and just keep making more money. You know, you can't go to McDonald's at 16, flip hamburgers for 20, 30 years and make $100,000. You just can't do it. And so the question I have is, should compensation, it's not a question, compensation should remain connected to job requirements?
I think it is with our salary range table though, so we do every year, every 2 years, every 2-3 years, every 2-3 years. When's the last one we did, Kevin?
Well, I don't think it's been done since I've been.
I think I did
Really?
it before Kevin came out.
Yeah, because I think that was the last time we voted on it, was when Dane was doing it for us.
So it's,
So we haven't
Yeah.
raised that range for 4 years.
yeah, so we probably need to look at our salary range table again. We do have one, but it's probably outdated from the comp we do. You know, there are probably positions, I can't think of one right now, but I'm sure there are some positions
We have one position that's at the cap.
that is, or have declined because, you know, they don't do it anymore. But yeah, you're right. They want to come in and they want to be, you know, the carpet sweeper. Here's that range. Here's as high as they can get, and it may ratchet up a little bit every year, but.
There's something to be said about knowledge that comes with time, and I'm not discrediting that, but it should also be our vision and our goal to build up all of our employees to a point where we're just not good enough for them anymore. They're ready for the next big thing, whether that's a departmental change within the city or, you know, another local business. Our goal should be to better each and every employee. And I'm not saying we're not doing that.
My prior employer had their wages and their increase in wages were based not only on your performance, but then on what quartile you were in within that salary range. I mean, we had salary ranges too. So if you, let's say the maximum you could get is 4% a year. If you were at the very lowest quartile and you had a perfect score on your performance evaluation, you could get the full 4%. If you were at the higher quartile and you scored perfectly on your evaluation, you could only get 1%.
That's
And
more American.
yeah, ours is set up similar to that, so. That seemed to work very well. It kept those high earners from just,
Kept
you know,
ours-
blowing past the finish line.
Our max is 3% on that board.
Well, thank you.
I was doing
No,
manager
Manager,
man.
man.
I call it cowboy man. All right, thank you. You've done a great job, Austin. Councilman Glockman.
I went through, met with Kevin. 2-3 times. We did not truly find a whole lot of things. I kept saying, you know, I don't find a smoking gun here. Talked a little bit maybe about coming down the pipe, maybe people service doing some billing or something, since they're handling the water and the sewer. If it's a good deal or not, it, you know, probably needs to be looked at. And I talked some about going cashless, since everything else is cashless in the world. What would that look like here? Could you save an FTE in the clerk's office? Something that you might want to consider down the road. Jane and I sat and talked. I just don't see anything. It's a fairly well-run oiled machine. You guys have done an awesome job. Everything I looked at. Public transit, you kind of, one person left and, you know, Coletta picked up what was left behind. So thank God for that, you know, there's not a whole lot to find in administration. So I went over to the fire department, went over there for a meeting and a practice and talked with the guys and seeing what their thoughts were. Where can we save money, you know, and what's going on? And again, I didn't find anywhere really to save money. I found a place to spend money. You know, you start looking around and it's like, you know, like Jane and I were talking, I knew we need to look at wages and bring that up. It's been three or 4 years since wages have been looked at. That's not.
Well, we've actually done cost of living increases.
Right.
We just haven't done the actual survey comparing us
analysis.
to other.
Yeah.
Yeah, the comparison though, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna get a
It's
bump.
not gonna go
Right.
up.
It just gives it moves the range up.
More than likely it'll go.
Yeah.
So anyway, on the fire side, I did not find anything either. I was surprised. They didn't ask me for anything and I didn't find anything. And I told Dell that.
I'm gonna jump in on that one a little bit with EMS though.
I don't,
Because
EMS wasn't on my list.
I know, because we don't. That's yours.
That's another subject.
Yeah, EMS, when I was elected, I didn't have an agenda. I just wanted to serve on the council. But I do have an agenda now. My agenda is getting a countywide EMS sustainably funded. And that's gonna be tough. We are, as I understand, working with the fire department, they are moving towards consolidation countywide. That is looking very, very good, that it's gonna happen. Talking to county commissioners, this isn't definite yet, but we're working towards a true county department.
And that needs to happen, I agree.
So that's a big step for them. Talking to the city manager Wilkins, it sounds like, you know, we may need to extend our EMS contract one more year. Just to get us by while all these changes are occurring. But that's that's something that other communities across the state are looking at Ogallala, because we are leading the pack on that. And it started 2-3 years ago. When
Region West.
Region West left,
Gave us notice. They want it out in 60 days. We held them to 180.
and we
needed every day of that 180.
we were hanging out there with the risk of, no ambulance.
You know, and it's something that Kansas, a lot of the small communities in Kansas switched over to 10 years ago, one countywide.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a no-brainer.
And you've all seen the articles that we've circulated on Aurora looking at a for-profit providing service or doing it internally. My thoughts are if we would consider going to a for-profit, we're gonna be revisiting this in a few years when they take their prices up so high that we can't afford it. I mean, we need to control our own destiny on this. So that's all I'm saying on EMS. I'm gonna get off my soapbox now, but that is something that we are gonna be spending some money on for a while till we get that
You're
sustained.
exactly right on that. It's something, I know several people, we've talked about this, when I go fishing, you guys up Kansas. It's. Nebraska's not leading, we're following them, but it's a good idea, it needs to be done.
So Steve, that begs a question on the EMS side of things. Now that you open that can of worms. Do we need to look at reducing the percentage that the city pays to the county because the citizens are being double taxed?
That's a discussion we need to have with county commissioners that I've already given them a heads up on that.
Okay. Thank you.
There have been some other communities, I have to look it up again, that have moved to where they do have volunteers with like the fire department that actually goes out for assist, like falling assist, which we tend to get some calls on that seem to be higher as people get older. Kind of restructuring what the ambulance service goes out on versus, volunteer calls too, and looking at some of that. Or do we need to look at, volunteers that help drive an ambulance versus a full paid position too all the time? I think also, and Daryl, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I know Daryl, I believe, said it numerous times, and if not, just smack me, but succession planning, I think is something we definitely need to look into. I think we've been talking about that forever. And we really need to start looking at that top down. It doesn't matter the departments. Making sure that we have that cross training was another big thing that we looked at, making sure that people are cross trained. Because we have a lot of places, it doesn't matter where we're at throughout the city. I mean, every business kind of has the same issue too. It's just not the city, but if key people leave, we have issues. So we want to make sure we can cut those off and mitigate those the best that we can by having that shared knowledge to make those changes. If somebody decides to move, leave, go to a new job, it makes it easier on the city and the citizens of the city. So that might be something we take a good hard look at.
Yeah. Go ahead.
To that point, I've always wondered, so we have an ordinance that states all full-time employees have to live within city limits. There is a manager exception that the manager can override that certain circumstances. And I've always wondered, why don't we look at just opening that up? I mean, do we really care where employees live, whether they want to live in Perkins County or Arthur County? Should we remove those restrictions to allow us a little bit more freedom to choose? Of course, we're always going to want to look close
I think it's
first.
all on call, which would be streets.
I don't believe so.
There was one in my mind that was living in Paxton, working here. What it's basically for is for your police and firemen. That once you, because your police, if you had an emergency, you want everybody to show up.
Sure.
Police again, and same with your fire, but maybe not so much with the city mechanic or someone similar in position.
Could be wrong, but I thought that it was written for all full-time employees.
I wouldn't have any problem opening
Are you
that.
talking within like a 20-minute? They have to have a
Pretty
training.
sure I read it. It reads-
It's people that are on call,
Yes,
so your police, your fire,
Street.
street department. That's the ones that are mandated. And we have had a fire chief that lived out of that limit.
okay. I was under the impression it was all full-time employees when I read it, but I'll have to check.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
I mean, the other advantage to having lived in the city limits is the environmental impact reduction. I understand housing is a challenge. Or can be in Ogallala.
I think they did at the county, I think Department of Roads opened theirs up a while back too. It's where they were hiring from outside of even the county just to fill spots because they were in some issues of them.
And I should clarify, there's definitely rules that they need to live within the city limits or within a certain time period for on-call. I agree with all those.
Jumping back to EMS quickly here, one thing we need to do on the budget for that is the city and the county need to be more involved in preparing their budget, which we really haven't been because we didn't know how it was operated. You know, we pretty much left it to,
We've been building it, so it's.
Yeah.
Comparables.
we have an idea now, so we're gonna be.
Plan over time is for them to take out the assets as well too, right? They just
Yep.
develop all of it, pay for the assets, right? So that makes it a lot easier when they're
But they-
requesting like lake equipment, things like that too. They're dealing with, and we don't have to be part of it.
With the consolidation of the fire departments too, it may wind up as part of that.
Perfect.
And then, you know, the equipment is Keith County.
The other thing, the last thing was police department and went and visited them guys, talked with them. Again, I didn't find anything. Very well, Rob. You guys do a really good job. And I told everybody that. Really well.
Fire department and police department are critical operations for the city. I mean, they're essential right up there with public works. I mean, water, sewer, fire protection, police protection. Those are the ones we have to keep.
Yeah.
And keep those people. And we're doing a pretty good job, I think, right now with police department retaining employees. Yeah.
We were full for a while.
I really appreciate Blockman's question there on the water and sewer billing. Don't know what it would hurt to see what's out there for services on that. Potentially reduce workload for the gals in the office, and if it saves money.
It's something that everybody's going cashless. The dump is cashless.
The cashless is gonna be a sensitive topic, but
Yes,
it's,
I agree 100%.
How's that going for the hospital?
It's forgotten about.
It blew over now?
You know, you go to a Nebraska game, it's cashless. You go to Kearney to the, that new building they built out there, that's cashless. Everything's gotten cashless.
There would be public outcry, as there was with the gas department, as there was with the telephone company, as there was with the electrical company, but all utilities have gone with the contract billing.
If it would,
You know, for 2 weeks, they're gonna all rather soon, don't forget about it. Be on something else. But, you know, you don't have to do it today or tomorrow, but it's something you put in the back of your mind
it's
to look at coming down the road.
on the list.
and it all goes back to at what cost.
So eventually it's gonna cost us more to keep it safe. We definitely need to move it.
Well, and, you know, we'd have to give the residents an opportunity to talk to someone face to face too, I think. I mean, if people service would pick up the billing, you know, I'd like them to have maybe an office somewhere where, you know, here's the person you talk to, because they're gonna be going to your office about the water and sewer bills.
We got a building for lease up on 10th Street.
That's a nice building. Thank you.
All I had.
Thank you. Last but not least, Councilman Weddington.
Yeah, so I looked at, again, streets. So based off the numbers I got from Kevin, we have 170 lane miles that we maintain, 30 to 40 lane miles of alleys. The employees we have out there basically maintain storm drains, street sweeping, mechanical services, signs, streetlights, ditches, we put up the Christmas decorations. Tree dump, special events, snow removal, and then support the other departments in our community. Right now, I think there's 5 employees out there. One question that he didn't know, yes, was what would the condition of our streets currently? We said 40% poor, 30% fair, and then 30% river exit. And I think we need those numbers to try to figure out long-term this, how we attack goal and where we get the funding to tackle. Trying to get more of that or lower that percentage or raise the percentage for good. I'd like it to see us somewhere probably 80% for good. And I realize that's a huge stretch goal. I think it's doable if we can figure out where we can find the funding. So right now, or last year, we spent almost $1.4 million for street department expenses. That breaks down to almost $8,000 per lane mile, and that's an estimate. And then employee per lane is about 34 lane miles per employee. Sorry, I'm just reading, there's some stuff in here since we did want to do comparisons with other communities. I'm kind of skipping over that information. I don't know if we need to do long term, maybe not next fiscal year, but more engineering, pavement condition surveys. Figuring out how we track certain aspects of the work they do out there separately, so we can track what's actually costing us and figuring out priorities as well. I know we had equipment replacement schedules, so also again, putting in PM schedules to understand what it's actually costing us. And that's all I have on recommendations or what I've seen with the student project. Any questions?
Good info.
Yeah, I apologize. I did not speak with anybody at the streets, so if they are here today. I should have at least had that conversation, so.
Any questions from council?
I think we have a 1 in 5 coming up again, don't we? Publishing.
Yeah, Nick's working on it with them, chief sheriff.
We do that every year though.
Yep.
Which. Target smooth.
They do, then everyone in front of them should have the city airport management review. There's a clearly put that out. So basically 5,100 feet of main runway. 36 and 3,700 feet. Across runways, 20 hangars are out there. And then, basically 554 different plane numbers were logged over the last 3 years. So our core strengths out there appear to be the infrastructure exceeds that of many airports with similar populations. And then previous council for their forethought to have that airport out there. I guess the runways and fuel and data seem to support and maintain the overall cost of that airport pretty well. So in 2023, we had almost 400 people logged through the airport. We did a little over 400 in 2024, and then we had a huge drop off in 2025. And I don't know if that was real or not, or if for some reason we got a little relaxed in the way you get tracking. Yeah, it's less than 199. So it just seems a little significant to me. And probably not real.
Some of that I think is reflected by our airport attendants being, has had health challenges and not getting things, of course.
And he was a one-man operation. Yeah. So there's no one else out there.
The other thing I looked at was, I guess, the number of aircraft that we flew. I was hoping to see larger numbers. We were out there. So of the 554 different plane numbers, 424 were once. So yeah, so of the 540 aircraft that have landed out the airport between 2023 and 2025, 424 of them only visited us once.
So 130 repeaters, basically.
During that time frame, Kevin, how many months was fuel not available? Because
Avgas has been out, was out for almost a year.
I think that's the biggest contributor to, you said that the dip in 2025 is if you know, on the NOTAMs, there's no fuel available, almost no.
What is our plan for that? Where, oh, yeah.
Avgas has been working for a while. It's still not working well. It's hard to find somebody to work on that pump. That pump is a piece together pump. The you know, see they replace one part and another part breaks. We are selling Avgas right now, but you gotta like stand on one leg and hold your arm just right to get it to pump. When the reel needs to be replaced when they come out, I've got another work order in when they come out to replace that reel to again go through the pump and make sure it's working efficiently.
So do we have we looked at what it would cost to replace the pump?
To replace the fuel system, it's a significant capital expenditure. I tried to look at getting that as part of our FAA, the excess budget we have for our current airport project and doesn't qualify. According to our engineer.
Mr. Dunn.
I'm gonna put on my Nebraska Aeronautics Commissioner hat. This is something we're exploring statewide. If you're familiar, we have a hangar loan program through the state. We're exploring the opportunity of a fuel island loan program. Now, it's in its infancy state right now. So my question would be, does the city own the fuel and or the equipment and or both?
We own it all.
Okay, so that's a great start, because that makes you eligible for this program in the future. I would assume we're somewhere between 18 months to 24 months out from implicating this and diverting other funds to this program. But we have intentions currently with the current commissioners to have some sort of a loan program similar to the hangar loan program for fuel islands. Just throwing it out there.
So our tanks are fine. The tank is fine.
So,
It's just a pump.
don't you?
Kevin?
The tanks are fine.
So it's just the pump.
It's pumps.
So.
And the Jet A pump. It works well, I think, as far as I know. I don't get any complaints on Jet A. We just replaced the fuel, the credit card reader not that long ago. It's the avgas pump. I think you're looking at 80 grand.
I think it's something we ought to need to consider in our budget. Get into next year and see what.
When we look at it, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna say, if, we're not an airport, we can't sell fuel there. They have a
Well,
tank, people.
That's
That's a revenue generator.
every time they leave, they say it's working, and then I get a call that it's not. So,
When you
It's
look
hard to
at
find
it from
somebody
an
to work.
economic development perspective, the fact that that goes out on a note of it, that all pilots see that. You're just doing a disservice to your tax base, honestly. I mean, if you could get more repeaters, like Councilman Weddington had said. We're talking about increased sales tax, whether they're coming in town and using the grocery store or whatever, popping in for a soda and a sandwich wherever. You're losing significant tax base based off of not having more repeaters come land at your airport. And going back to the fuel thing, we had priced out a new fuel island within the last 3 to 5 years, and for 10,000 gallons of just 100 low lead, we were well over $300,000 for tanks, pumps, equipments, etc. I can guarantee you that number is double what it is now. We're probably closer to $750,000, if not more, for a system similar to what you have now out there. So when you look at it from that perspective, $80,000 for new pumps is a pretty easy ask, in my opinion.
Gotta sell a lot of fuel to pay for an $80,000.
Well, then
Well,
start going out on the note of that you have fuel, then
And
more
our
people are gonna land,
Flight for Life is fueling up out there, aren't they?
which would be your Jet A.
Yeah, the helicopters are coming in, because I live up by the hospital, so I see them, they land, they drop off the crew to package the patient. The helicopter takes off. And the helicopter's back in anywhere from, 15 to 30 minutes.
Pretty quick,
Yeah,
quick turnaround.
pretty fast.
as quick as you
So
can
I-
hook up the
so
ground wire and go.
I'm just assuming they're going to, fuel up to get back to where they were going, so. We might as well be.
I haven't moved, Captain.
So my question was in that fuel farm lease program through the state, and that's loaned or leased from the state of Nebraska to the city airport?
Yeah, it's not a lease program. It would be a loan program to where the city would apply for those funds. And then obviously work just like any other loan, there'd be an amortization schedule, so on and so forth, just like our hangar loan program. And I can certainly provide some more information on that. I can send you that as it becomes available. Again, we're just in the infancy stages of that, but it's relevant to this conversation as we talk about the future. But the immediate concern sounds like the pumps, based on the conversation, and I would highly suggest, that at least getting an engineer's estimate on the replacement of those, so what the current costs are, Because when you look at $1 million system, $80,000 it's not chump change by any means. I'm not saying that it's chump change. But that's what it's gonna be when there's a 90-10 federal aid grant or state aid grant.
And Midwest Petroleum has given me multiple assurances it's fixed, and I'm not an expert on airport avgas fuel pumps, but it seems to be that there is a reset mechanism on that pump that is aged and it doesn't fully reset. And when it doesn't fully reset, it doesn't communicate back to the water sales system. And so you have to try it a couple of times to get it to reset. And by then they're calling, saying, hey, your fuel pump doesn't work. So then I go out there and we get it going, but it's not a good look.
On your program, it would be amortized out and the city would have to pay back to the state the cost of the fuel pump.
Yeah, it's a low interest loan. And it's based off, it would be based off, just like the hangar's based off of leased hangar space and the amount they're charging. The same thing would be based off of an estimated amount of sale of gas to not burden the city or overburden the city in its tax.
To keep the discussion going, I think we need to get something done with our fuel, but back to Councilman Whiting, sorry for the
No problem.
delay.
Good information and.
Yeah.
So, I guess one benefit, the satisfactory surveys that we've done out there, we're in the top 90s, 99%, so. The gentleman that is actually working out there is doing a good job. Appreciate his efforts. The other thing with Joe, last year, we basically netted almost $83,000. The rentals from the rental cost, that we made from rentals for the hangars was a little over 60,000. So again, obviously we're doing a good job of staying current and not having any funding out there. So the other thing that I guess Kevin had talked about was trying to get someone out there, and he was talking about maybe sharing that with another department. And basically the recommendation that I saw as well, I guess I would agree with that, so. Either we'd have somebody part-time. Or again, they would be working. In another department, and we'll go out there as needed to do whatever is required out there for now. I guess long-term, it'd be nice if we could figure out. How we could maybe make that position full-time. And then figure out how that individual would bring in new business to the airport. To, I guess, just make it, I guess, more self-sufficient volunteers. And make it, I guess, more visible to the pilots who are up there, who's known that freedom that they have.
It'd really be nice to get a for-profit FBO in there. It's just, I don't know what level we would have to set that person to come in.
Any questions about anything that I talked about?
Good question. Are all your hangars rented?
Yes.
Are they?
And airplanes. No boats, right?
I do twice a year inspection.
What's our profit per gallon we sell?
We buy it, we mark it up a buck, which is problematic, because when we buy high, it sits in the tank, and when we buy low, it sells out.
So sorry.
It's hard, but we set up by the fee schedule, so every time we would have to adjust the fee schedule every time we buy gas.
So it's like a 20% margin, 15-20% margin, 10.
Well, right now, I think the last avgas we bought was $6 a gallon.
I think it's a.
Hard part is we can't be flexible, just because it'd have to come back every time to
We
commit.
can't follow the market.
So it's like, if we wanted to follow market, it would be better off to have an operator, they own it, they own the gas, they could adjust daily, like your normal gas stations can. Because if not, ask them back every time committee, that's every twice a month. And, you know, it averages out, but we're not seeing the market at all.
The proposal that we sent out, that we initially thought we had negotiated was the FBO or airport attendant would own the gas, we would continue to own the facility, and they would adjust, they would follow the market.
So if we've got a 15% profit on fuel, an $80,000 pump would break even in 5 years, 6 years,
25%. Is what.
4 years,
Yes.
roughly.
Yes.
I think we need to do it. I think we need to get,
Keep in mind that's just the avgas.
we need to get the pump going.
It is going. It just doesn't go all the time. You have to try it a few times.
So is it a pump issue or is it a support electrical system issue?
That, I don't, it's a mechanical reset. I don't know if the mechanical reset just takes a couple of nudges to get it to reset. Or, so it sends that electrical signal, or if it's an electrical signal. We have had that thing apart 4 times in the past year. The piece that, I think we've replaced every piece in that pump except for this one piece, and that probably needs replaced. By the time we're done, we should have a rebuilt pump. And we haven't gotten a bill yet either.
Well, if they're not fixing it, we should pay for it.
Well, that's kind of what I told them. I don't want to see a bill until it pumps.
Well, and it'd be nice if we did have an operator out there to have them be able to structure, look at cost to see, you know, what. When you take value times expense out there, especially with repeaters versus single stops, you know, are they coming into town, or are they just stopping for fuel? Do a true cost benefit analysis of the airport, because I think we have data going clear back to when it opened.
I think our airport has excellent potential.
Correct.
But we need somebody who understands aviation, who has connections with aviation, and has passion for it.
Correct.
So Ron Schmidt again, I bought a lot of fuel out at the airport. I'm an airplane owner and I love aviation. I notice right now we don't have a windsock at the airport unless.
Again?
Yeah. Because we've had high winds and, you know, the windsock ends up in Kansas or Oklahoma somewhere. And so, and Mike Candy was a great guy for a lot of years, but he's completely physically, I think, unable to attend the airport right now. The hose for the fuel farm is laying out on the ramp right now because the retract mechanism won't roll it back in. And sometimes when it does roll it back in, it's so aggressive that it
Jet A's out on the ramp?
pardon me,
Jet A?
not Jet A, 100 Lolet.
Yeah, the 100 Lolet to real lift.
Yeah, it's not retracting, and then the reset button on the machine, you have to kind of know how to reset it to get it to do the pump that way. So the solution out there is to come up with an airport attendant or a fixed base operator that can make the airport meet its potential. Kevin's done a great job in trying to recruit those people, but like anything else, it's just not an easy thing to do. So, but the key is that I guess the reason I'm up here now is the airport, Kevin's the airport manager. As the city manager, he's the airport manager. And by virtue of that structure, the airport becomes the bastard child because Kevin's hands are full managing and operating the city of Ogallala. And so the airport has never had, and it has a few times in the past 45 years, you know, had full-time management out there, and it flourishes when it does. So that's what's needed out there is somebody that can run the airport and manage it properly.
So if you know of anybody, send them our way.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Well, and the fuel, and just like they said, marking it up $1 is problematic, and so somebody out there that, you know, had the responsibility for and could adjust the fuel sales, then it could be a win-win, and you know, maybe, you know, then it would be good for the city and for students, so. I think Kevin's got a pretty good plan in mind, so see.
Thanks, sir.
One more thing on the airport, sorry. We're beating the dead horse, aren't we? You guys wanna get out of here? So in 2019, Nebraska Aeronautics Commission, through NDOT, Division of NDOT, they did do an economic impact study. We're coming up on that 5-year renewal of that plan, but in 2019, the economic impact of your airport in Ogallala correlated to 32 FTEs or $2.7 million of economic impact to the community. So, and these numbers are outdated, just to let you know, but we're redoing that economic impact study again because it was so worthwhile for airports that are general use airports. The airports that have emplacements like Scotts Bluff, North Platte, Epley, you know, LNK, so on and so forth, they have actual hard data. This is largely based on the visitor logs and the number of based aircraft that are on site, so on and so forth.
So what's the math on that?
Yeah, that's what.
Okay, and so
Those inputs.
yeah, it's they said to produce conservative economic values. The Nebraska aviation team calculated the numbers of visitors based on dividing the number of operations by 2 and multiplying the airport manager's classification of operations by the percentage of itinerant operations. It's legal mumbo jumbo is what it is. It's meant to be confusing, but the way it was broken down at that time was it's based on the number of fixed based aircrafts, the number of takeoffs and landings, the number of repeats versus they're going by tail numbers, basically who's landing multiple times and who's only landing once. That's the way it was explained to us at the time. And at the time I was the Grant airport manager. So.
Thank you.
So the data is only as good as the input. Sure. Basically. So whoever was in charge at that time providing input to the Nebraska when they sent the survey out to whoever was then the airport manager, the data is only as good as that.
Do you happen to have that report you can send to us?
And it's available on the
It's on the.
Nebraska Aeronautics. You can just Google search. Maybe the exact. Google search Nebraska Aeronautics economic impact. And it's from 2019. We are working on an updated one.
I think the only direction our airport can go is up.
It is gonna go up 6 inches next year.
Councilman Weddington,
Yeah.
back to you. All right, tell you what, this has been very, very helpful. We have a lot to mull over here, and decide how we're going to pursue some of these items that we've discussed, which ones should be our highest priority to move forward on. And how I don't know that we need another special meeting, but maybe we can. When's our budget discussion?
If there are items the council that I want to put on later agenda action items, you could review these notes and do that, or you could bring this information that you've discussed to the budget hearings as we put together the budget. I'm getting some direction that we need to look, and I'm seeing more cost than savings in this next year budget to prepare for future things, but what I've gleaned out of this is a technology upgrade, perhaps look at budgeting 75,000 to oversee the cemetery. Software for employee tracking, a better explore contract billing. These are things that as a result of your deep dive in these departments, I think these are things that you can begin to contemplate and incorporate into the next budget cycle. But right now, some of this is gonna be more geared on a 27, 28 savings, more so than the 26, 27 savings.
Have we gotten with or asked the managers of the departments to look for creative ways to cut their budget by?
We do that every year. And we don't give them a specific amount to cut, but we do, I mean, most of our budget's personnel that we have the ability to cut.
You know, based on feedback on my part, I'll do a finalized. Here's my recommendation, then I'll send it to everybody. They can go to Kevin from there as we go into budget, so I'll do that on mine based on conversations today, and then the conversations over the next 2 weeks that I'll have with the rest of the group with a follow-up with this meeting, so. I'll get that out.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Chris. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try and consolidate my notes and just say, you know, hey, here's where I think we should move forward, or here's what we should try. And when. Kind of give it a window like 26, 27, or, you know, do it immediately. And I think we can plug an agenda item so we can discuss that.
I think we can amalgamate those notes and see where there's overlap, and then just put that as another report out as a future agenda item as we go into budget.
Yeah, not necessarily an action item for a vote, but just so we're all talking about the same thing again.
We're all on the same page going into
Exactly.
the next section.
Exactly. I mean, I've met with everyone except I haven't had a chance to meet with Councilman Weddington, but on this, talk to him. And that's tough to do. I mean, it takes a lot of time to meet with people individually, and then we're not sure we're communicating that as accurately to everybody as we have to that one person. So I think if we just keep it on the agenda.
Well, the thing about Councilman Weddington, the effort that Councilman Weddington put into this is gonna be, this is gonna be additional help for me when I'm continuing to talk to people about the airport. Okay. Here's some objective information that was gleaned over 3 years of research.
Yep.
And I would say a lot of the same for me. I'll kind of consolidate everything that we've talked about today. I viewed this meeting as just an opportunity to discuss our findings and hear different perspectives and options and ideas. I mean, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm well aware of that. The one thing, I guess a few things I would have a request that we need to run through City Manager Wilkins would be, I think it'd be beneficial if we could get the park supervisor to put together a kind of a survey and have him identify what we would classify as primary and secondary grass areas, and to give us square footage or acres. That way we have a better picture of what we are looking at, areas that we could potentially, you know, I definitely don't think we should just go, hey, let's do native grass everywhere. Let's try a sample. Let's see what the unintended consequences are, and we'll keep working that direction. I would also highly encourage him to look at how we can cut some expenses, especially in regards to watering currently. It might be okay to stress test the grass a bit. We might be in a situation where we have to do that regardless. So
Yeah.
And I think it's good because we're asking residents to be mindful. So it's only positive for us to be mindful and say, hey, we're doing everything we could. What's that limit that we can hit?
Correct. And the other thing I would ask for if the council were to support it, is do not fill the cemetery supervisor position after the resignation of Fenwick.
I think that is. That has my support. I think we need to just hold off on that right now.
Thank you.
The other thing that we may have the parks manager look at as well is, since there said someone in Colorado had already gone to this.
Aurora.
Yeah, so if they've already done it, why can't we benchmark them
Absolutely.
and see what challenges they have? So we don't have those same stumbling blocks.
Sounds like a road trip.
I'll talk to Jared. If I was gonna make a recommendation for where we try that, it would probably be the grass area to the west of Goodall, because that's not a play surface. And it's very visible, so you'll find out the community's reaction real fast.
I'd look at something
Or you go
really not as visible. I mean, just a smaller area.
from Cyril to Glenasnot. Which would be behind the Artemis.
Oh, I'd look at. Like a wastewater treatment plant, see if there's something out there. Look at something, Western Diamonds down on the lower field or those areas. There's areas.
Areas that aren't grass now, because we're converting from turf
Right,
to native. There isn't any turf grass out at the wastewater treatment plant.
okay. Pick a park, but
I'll talk to
yeah.
Jared. We'll see.
I think we need to start somewhere where you really don't see it yet to see how it comes in and then expand from there.
Cause we're talking about overseeding, so it's gonna take
Yes,
some time,
and how big an area we want to do.
cause there will be a cost.
Yes.
Because the area we do, it's gonna get the same amount of water as the bluegrass. Unless they take just a section. An irrigation section.
You'd have to take an irrigation section,
Yeah,
otherwise your native grasses aren't gonna grow, they'll get crowded out by the bluegrass.
Yep.
Water.
I think again, this would be a good opportunity for Curtis to identify primaries and secondaries, and maybe he has a good idea of a location where they have irrigation that's maybe a little bit out of sight, out of mind. So I like where you're headed. My only fear is we're just adding more cost in an area that we don't need. So I'd like to take an area that we already take care of and manage and try converting that.
something, in West Park, the far. Northwest.
Correct.
And we don't have a very good sprinkler system in West Park.
That's what I was gonna recommend too, if there's part of places that we need to replace system,
And hit,
allow us to make that adjustment.
I noticed that the other day when I drove by. There was people playing there. But
Yeah.
the irrigation is not the best in there.
Yeah, we need to get that parlay program ready too, so. You can measure acres. with
He's
that.
been trying that, there's a bunch of modules on
Failing.
at the bottom.
Okay.
It's based on Google Earth, but it's got all these KMZ modules.
Anything else?
I'd like to make some more comment real quick. And this on the school side, just like Kevin said. There's no smoking gun. I've been on the school board probably going on 15 years now. We're probably gonna have to raise the mill next year for the first time since I've been on there. It's a killer. Stuff's expensive. There's it's all of our household same way. You just, there's so much you can do. These services have to be, we're a service, industry, so I mean. I'm behind you guys 100%. There's no smoking gun. Oh, fix this and there's our problem. Good, some suffering and. Like I said, I'm really concerned with the school side of it. First time since I've been in there, right? Raise up the mill. It's tough. Insurance. And it's killer.
hardest thing we have to do is tell someone no.
Yeah, and stuff that we have no control over.
And, you know, it's
Just
just,
people in their own households recognize this, they just don't wanna put that in that perspective with the city, counties, schools.
People don't realize it costs so many dollars to have the lights on in this building.
Oh, jeez.
And you know, you don't think about your tax money, but the toilet paper in this building is bought by tax money. And it all comes down, the insurance, the carpeting, the every darn thing in here. It's just like owning a business, and I tell people that all day, that's why I charge what I do. And that's why your tax levy has to be what it is.
Please keep the toilet paper in this building.
yeah. Well, and you know, what I always tell people is, you know, a city,
Sick Brandon, I sometimes.
we don't have stock, we don't have shares, we don't make a profit. We do everything as reasonably as we can. Any governmental entity does.
I think one-time purchase of the day is except from.
Bring your own. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn before we get way on track. We have a motion by Councilman Clockman and second by Councilman Whiting. Adjourn.
People are all.
We'll get a little bit. Yeah. I agree, but what doesn't make sense to me is that property values are so, there are more houses.
I have a vote for you.
Now than there was.
I don't have a vote for you for adjournment.
That does not make. sense.
Good job.
That is not logical.
That was amazing, yeah.
But yes.
Where are those guys?